Only 15% of Dewan Rakyat are women, and 15.6% of our ministers are women. Why is female representation so low in politics? Hello everyone. The question we're asking on Women Talk today is, why does Malaysia need more women involved in all aspects of the political process? With numbers so low, what are the barriers? I'm Deborah Henry.
And I'm Siti Saleha, delighted to be co-hosting another important episode of Women Talk. And with us today, we have three inspiring women politicians at different stages of their political career. First and foremost, we have YB Hanna, who began serving as member of the Selangor Legislative Assembly for Subang Jaya for a decade, since 2008, and she was also the 10th Speaker of Selangor State Legislative Assembly from June 2013 to April 2018. And in 2018, she was elected as a Member of Parliament for Segambut to present day. And she has also served as Deputy Minister of Women, Family, Community Development, July 2018 to February 2020. Welcome, YB.
Thank you.
Our second guest is YB Datuk Dira Abu Zahar, Member of the Malacca State Legislative Assembly for RIM, and also Deputy Speaker of the Malacca State Legislative Assembly. You're also first artist, I have here in my notes, celebrity, in Malaysia, former actress, director, to successfully win an election as a lawmaker. Thank you so much for being here.
And last but not least, we have YB Amirah Aisyah, who has just won a seat in the recent Johor elections, and she is now a member of the Johor State Legislative Assembly for Puteri Wangsa. She is the co-founder of Malaysian United Democratic Alliance Muda, and she is also someone who has never planned in joining politics at all.
Yes, well, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being here.
And congratulations on your recent seat.
Thank you so much.
So presently, I mentioned a couple of statistics earlier. Dewan Rakyat only has 15% women out of the 222 seats. We know ministers is 15.6, I believe, and even lower for deputy ministers at 10.6. So the numbers don't look great. Although women make up half our population, we know that education attainment levels are very high, but there is some sort of disproportion that is existing. YB Hanna, maybe you can share some light on this.
I think we have to talk about the entry point, creating a level playing field. When you have seats, and seats are given by the party for you to contest, they will look at how many % of women we want to fill. And so we are always now talking about 30%, even though we represent 50% of the population. So the starting point is, would every political party give up those seats and offer it to women? So that is the starting point. And not just giving us seats, but giving us winnable seats. There's no point you give us all the difficult seats and then say, here are your 30% seats to contest.
So it seems like someone still owns the seats. When you say give up, it belongs to somebody and they have to...
That's right. You know, every division, they will have branch members. So you are talking at entry-level participation in politics. And the barriers would usually be, you know, politics is seen as a field, fighting field. You go in and you fight for causes. You have to be loud, you have to be strong, and so they feel that, oh, this is not really suitable for women. But today the challenges, the causes that we fight for children, for women, and so, you know, the playing field has changed today. The fights are different now. So
we saw in the recent Johor elections where YB Amirah, there were 37 female candidates that contended, but previous polls were only 27. And if you see in the Malacca State, only 16 out of 112 who participated were women, only 16. So why are the candidacies so low to begin with?
I mean, it's quite sad because, you know, largely when we're talking about if we want to have, you know, good representation of people in the parliamentary or in the state legislative assembly, it should reflect the actual society, right? So it means if we have about 50% of the population female, then you should have at least 50% female in the Dewan. But then the thing is, from the very start, like YB Hanna mentioned, when you don't fill in enough women to winnable seats, how do you get them then to the State Legislative Assembly or also the Dewan Rakyat? And I think the issue also is because, again, they might have different opinion, but for us in Muda, we always believe that when you compartmentalize, for example, youth or women in certain wings, and that is when you don't have equal sort of standing in the party. And so usually traditionally, when parties wanted to fill in their candidates, they will look at, how many percent from youth wing should we fill in? How many percent from women wing should we fill in? And so the equation itself from the very first place will be limited to certain quota that has been provided to that particular wing. And so that is why when we formed Muda, we said we do not want to have youth wing, we do not want to have women's wing, because we believe that everyone should be treated equally, and you should be selected as representative or as candidate if you are, capable of doing so, regardless of whether you are old, regardless of whether you are young, regardless of your gender, regardless of your race. And I think that is a very important step that we have to take from the very first place, for everyone to recognize that regardless of our gender, we are just as capable, or even in many instances more capable than the women, the male leaders.
Yeah, and I think it's another example of just where you kind of draw these lines in these quotas where it doesn't work, and you end up having the women's section of the party, which looks like the sidekick to the main act. Obviously, as you say, not where we want to be. Deborah, what about yourself?
I agree with what Hanna you just now, is that the entry point when you talk about women participation in politics, women participation as a lawmaker before and then after that is the entry point. Because we're not just merely talking about close to the PRU, then you start to worry about who's candidate. But actually, it started many years before that. We have to do a lot of groundworks, a lot of engagements with the audience, with where we want to, we think that we might have the possibility of contesting. So a lot of ways and phases of journey to just to be able to get to be the candidate.
I can imagine. And that often is so daunting and overwhelming that women and men perhaps, like at the starting point you're already looking at it and like, do I begin? Where do I begin? How do I begin? We could continue talking with 3 politicians on set, but we have to take a little break. We'll be back after this.
Welcome back to Women Talk, and today we are discussing women in politics making a difference. With us we have YB Hanna Yeoh, YB Datuk Dira, and YB Amirah Aisyah.
So a question I'd like to ask is, and a lot of people will ask this out there, like, why is it actually so important that we need to see 50% women, or just to see more women in these decision-making leadership positions? Yeah, and it goes beyond the conversation, I think, of gender equality, because that's not just the goal. I think, as YB Hanna mentioned a little bit earlier, is when you see more women in positions of leadership, you also see more perspectives, different perspectives. You see a different kind of response to the needs of the community, of minorities. So why?
The perspective or the way we handle things are very different from men. So I give you an example. For many years, Parliament used to have very late night sittings. Up to midnight they will stop the clock. But this round we have 33 women in Parliament, and when they started having late night sittings, a few of us, we made very, very loud noise, and we say, this is not acceptable because we have families, we have children, and I cannot go on staying in Parliament every day until midnight. For a man, maybe you don't have responsibilities, but we want to change that that stereotype, that men, you don't have to look after kids. If you're a young father, you have equal responsibility. So when we make noise, Parliament then say, okay, we're not going to have late night sittings. So they try to stop before 8 p.m. So it really is about the infrastructure helping women excel in politics. Yeah.
Okay, so if we go back to see the first parliament, which was in 1955, right, and there was only 52 seats at the time, one taken by a woman, right, and after that we saw it progressed very slowly. 2 elections after that in 1964, only 3 women. A decade after that, 5.
Like snail pace.
A decade after that, another 7. And come 1999, only 20 women are in parliament, and now we are only at 15% only. So how many more decades do we have to wait for?
So what are the plans? Like, what are the strategies, the goals?
Well, I think looking at the past couple years after the emergence of social media, I think the demand that people are asking from political parties are bigger and bigger, and politicians, whether they like it or not, they have to listen to these demands, because now whatever you do are seen on a microscopic level, and that is why I believe that the journey for us to reach where we should be will be shorter than the journey that we had before this, because you can see that now when something is wrong long, the people will make a noise, and when the people make a noise, the politicians have to listen, because at the end of the day, we are sort of like a demand and supply chain. What the people demand, we have to supply. And so I think with the existence of social media, that journey will be cut short. And it is super necessary because there are so many issues that can only be fought best by women. Issues like, sexual violence, issues involving children, family issues. And I think now more than ever, the journey to have more and more female politicians are better, especially now we have more female politicians in respective seats to inspire more young ladies to come into the journey as well. Yeah.
If I may add, the intervention is necessary.
Yeah.
So for my political party, the DAP, we changed our constitution to say the decision makers, the party elections, you must elect 30% women. You bring them to the table, they become the decision maker, the policy makers for the party. So we have just done that, and then 30% are now elected to the table to make decision.
So the change has to happen at all levels. We can't always keep looking at the top and be like, there's where the change starts. I mean, individually, I think between all of yourselves, it's starting, as you say, the entry, the gateway, right?
For myself, because we could recently see from Melaka and Johor, is that there's no such thing as whether one has to have a certain position in their division in order to be able to be the candidate, but it is more like the winnable, the likable and the acceptable candidate. So that's where we started to see the numbers start to grow in women candidacy. So it shows that women can actually be the winnable candidate and likable and acceptable to the people. So there's no such thing like, or you have to be the ketua wanita first, or the head of division of
before you can attain. So what is it like in the corridors of Parliament? Obviously as the laymen, we see what TV or media or the government wants us to see. What is it like? Three ladies, your experiences there, even the fact that being female speaker, deputy speaker, do you feel a sense of I'm a woman here, or do you just feel it's very fair and equal and it's a very level playing field?
I think it depends on which hall you are in. In our current parliament, you have to stand, you have to find your ways to find that space to speak. Even then, when you try, sometimes they tell you be quiet and sit down. So you constantly have to rush against time, and also competing with other people. And it's really about who is louder, to get the speaker's attention. So it should not be that way.
Does it make a difference if the speaker is female? I mean, would you think there's a difference to be heard rather than like we have Datuk Sri Azalina Osman?
I think it definitely helps. I feel that we are more patient, we are better listeners, so we are not so snappy. We allow people to finish their sentences, and if you want to debate, you will have the time to debate. I feel, for me, definitely when I was speaker, I felt that made a difference. Definitely.
And just quickly, YB Amirah, for you, being fairly new in the world of politics?
Well, I haven't had the chance to have my sitting yet. The first sitting will be in June. But I was told that the Johor State Legislative Assembly will be, a bit more stale in comparison with the Parliament, simply because we do not have debates, we don't have options to POI, or we don't have to rush to get our voices, because we have so this is the time for your speech and you have to speak, and after that you just sit down and listen to others speaking, which actually I don't think, I feel that there's a pros and cons to that as well, and there's also a need for us to look at whether or not we need to make improvements to that, because we are supposed to debate, right? And if we don't debate, then
healthy debate. Let me throw that in there.
Yes, healthy debate,
intellectual, respectful debate.
My state assembly is quite fun actually. It's just that we're smaller size than by Parliament. But I heard about Johor. You can't you can't interject. You can't stop. No, there's no such thing like mencela or something like that. But we can.
Yeah.
Well, politics isn't for the faint-hearted. When we come back after this break, we're going to speak to our three members of Parliament and find out their personal stories, what inspired them to even begin on this journey serving their country. We'll see you after this.
Welcome back to Women Talk. Today we are discussing women in politics. How did all three of you started, what made you choose this path, this political path?
I've tried in so many platforms, other platforms before going into politics and stuff. So, but then I think there's no end. We cannot do it just merely under NGOs or under activisms of things like that. So the only way is to get close and be near to the policymaker in order to create change for the first. My intention was to the industry first.
Yes, and always be heard.
Yeah,
like
so
don't stop, right?
So how we were last time with all this. There's a lot of funny things anyway, but so I started to think that I have to choose between being in actors and have a good life just in actors, or I try to do some changes, but I have to change myself first. So other than that, of course, then it goes to the broader perspective where on education level and then the economy sectors for the young women especially. And then
that's amazing.
If we want more women to be in leadership, right, we have to start at schools. My personal belief. Are we inculcating leadership in our young? Are we telling a 12-year-old girl in school that I can be like, these members of parliament, these politicians,
and
that could be me one day?
Yeah, it's like some are kind of lucky because they have like political background, family, right? So how about you?
I think Amirah, education would be good for you.
Well, I mean, I don't come from a family of politicians. Mostly my family are educators. My mother's a teacher. My late father was also a teacher. And I didn't come from a well-off community. And when I was growing up, I realized that there are a lot of issues, socio-economic issues that are impacting the children. Growing up, I have friends who got into drugs. I have friends who got pregnant by the age of 15, 16 years old. But what I can see is that when you have proper education, you have proper access to education, proper support, then you can have a chance to break out of that cycle of poverty. So I always wanted to do something about education. I think if you ask many politicians, they always have that first thing, like YB Dira wanted to do something for entertainment, for example. We always have that one thing that we are exceptionally passionate about. And so I wanted to do something about education. When I joined politics, it was actually after Langkah Sheraton, after the Sheraton move. That was when I realized that there was a huge need for more people who are sincere in what they do, who are not just in it for power and for money, to be in politics. And it is easy for you to say that, politicians have to do this, this and this. But you need to walk the talk for you to be able to actually prove something to the future generation as well.
Thank you. And I mean, and that's what it is. Being a politician is really serving the people. I think so often we forget that in this country. And YB Hanna, if we could look at it, not too long ago, we had a very interesting time. I think YB Amirah touched on it with the Sheraton move, the changing shifts in power, the shifts in the people mandate was not being met, and your position was then jeopardized, right? What if you could turn back time? Could things be done differently? Is the focus between our political parties not aligned on a common goal for its people?
Yeah, I think one of the things that we would have done differently if we were given the opportunity would be to communicate better for Pakatan Harapan then. I think we were so busy dealing with the change at the federal level. It's our first time going into Putrajaya, and the bulk of our time we spent on learning about the new ministries and how we want to do better, and then we forgot about communicating what we were doing to our grassroots. And so when your grassroots, they don't hear from you, they then get frustrated, and then when they repeat that among their circles, and then it will spread. So I feel that it's not in politics, it's not just about what you do, how you communicate what you're doing to people. So communication is very important. Yeah.
Okay, and let's quickly touch on young voters, because we know we have Undi 18, there's an initiative now to achieve 111. So we're looking at the power that the young have. Of course, with your recent win, we look at certain parties really injecting youth into it, and I think everyone going, okay, this is working, but at the end of the day, it's the voter base. If the voters don't vote you in, they don't trust that this young person is capable, whether you're female or just young, then what's the point? So maybe YB Dira, what are you doing in your capacity to tackle this or to use this to your advantage?
Well, we've been doing it in a lot of like programs, and even when we were as an opposition for 22 months, I actually started with a lot of courses for leaderships, and then we give the opportunity for the young ones to be part with us. and a lot of grooming that we tried to do.
Right.
And the the potentials that we want to look among the young ones, and I always present it to the party and to all this, we call it like the upper or the seniors one, says that these are the potentials one, and we want them to participate more with us, definitely. So and I always tell the young ones that as much as sometimes they think that, especially in my position where I came from, my party, it's the oldest one, since independent, and so we always have these perceptions that the young ones were not given chance and stuff like that with us. But that's for me. If that is to happen, I wouldn't be able to be here. Even the young voters, we need to engage more with the young voters, because maybe those who are social media. They have access to all these gadgets and stuff, informations, but those outside kids, just slightly outside the town area, they wouldn't be much aware of that they can vote already.
There's also a responsibility to relook into the education syllabus as well. I think it's very important for you to include political education into formal education as well. And that's one thing.
I have to agree, because right now what happened, a lot of people think that, it's like, kids are not supposed to be, we're not supposed to go to the school and talk about politics. We're not supposed to, expose them with what is democracy's right and stuff like that. But when you allow the 18 years old to vote,
you need to educate them.
We need to educate them from start.
I think we should block them from getting involved with the democracy's knowledge.
Absolutely raise that stereotype and that stigma.
So
absolutely,
I think the education system has to just allow us. We are the practitioners. We are the party people. The political party people with the political will to do this. Just allow anybody. DAP can go, UMNO can go, Muda can go.
Everyone.
And I think that's where the bulk of money should be going in Malaysia, but also all around the world. Education, obviously, for many reasons, gets very little funding compared to other industries or sectors. That's where we started young, and I think it mitigates so many social ills. It empowers and educates our youth to grow up to become like you guys, so that you're not the exception, but you become the norm, right? And I hope to all the young girls and women watching, you talk about it. Politics matters. Don't see it as something scary and far away. But
hopefully being inspired, as I am, to see all three of you here. I feel really inspired.
For me, I look forward to seeing a Malaysia where, when you have such a diverse representation in decision-making positions, and you have the best, most capable individuals for the job across, not just in politics, but across industries and cross sectors, you end up with a more productive country, a more successful nation, economically, but also socially. And thank you so much, ladies, for being with us today, for sharing with us your inspiring stories, and also for encouraging all of those at home watching that they too can be sitting in these seats one day.
And being role models to everyone watching.
Thank you for having us.
And thank you guys for watching us. We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Saya memilih untuk bersama dengan UMNO walaupun selepas kekalahan PRU yang ke-14 tempoh hari, kerana saya percaya dan saya yakin bahawa UMNO adalah salah satu parti politik yang berani untuk memperjuangkan hak dan juga kemajuan bangsa di Malaysia ini.
Don't gamble with your future and your grandchildren's future. I can stand here and I can tell you that we have actually a lot of good people in Harapan and in Muda in the opposition side. Let these young people have an opportunity to go back and change history for us.
Orang Johor berhak mendapatkan pendidikan yang berkualiti, dan paling utama sekali saya percaya bahawa orang Johor berhak mendapatkan kehidupan yang bermaruah.